Shalom. My name is Yehoshua Yaakov. Good evening, good morning, whichever the case may be, to Joe Scarborough. This is a comment on Christopher Hitchens discussing his new book, The Portable Atheist. And the question is why now? And the answer is it's a pushback. I want to first address the fact that in the graphic, as you talk about this, Joe, in the graphic you quote and you put up a graphic on your on the television about his famous challenge that he boasts there were no takers. Specifically, you have to name for me an ethical statement that was made or a moral action that was performed by a religious person in the name of faith that could not have been made, or an action could not have been made as an action or uttered as a statement by a person of no faith, or not of faith or of any faith. Okay, approximately that's what we've got. The answer that was tendered 3 times on the internet by me, a man of faith, was, in the context of Hitch, you got to get Hitch in your get along, and the pitch by Hitch is no sale in Jerusalem. Okay, I hope I didn't upset him, but the answer is, and here is the religious person making the statement that a non-religious person, Hitch, cannot make, but I didn't quite explain to him why. I left him to challenge. I left him to stand up to his challenge. He claimed that he could do it, so let him make this statement. It is this, quote, information is the information that never changes parenthetically in finality, close parens, changing parenthetically in intentionality, close parens, end quote. That's the answer to his challenge. 3 times it was made, and 3 times, and even on your television program, he boasted that in fact there were no takers. Well, this is to confirm that indeed I challenged him, and then after his groupies were pleading that I should explain it and that I didn't, and it wasn't right, and I didn't understand what a great, brilliant guy he was. So finally, I made another video and I explained that this is the paradox, dilemma, dichotomy access as a function of Humanomics' first principle, which is receive to give in general, and its identity resolution, science and technology in particular, and even more particularly its first principle logic. Anyway, his challenge was met, and he's in beyond his depth. He's not a scientist, and his materialist philosophy, which has logically, I shouldn't say logically, but anyway, it's taken him forward and to become an atheist. That's fine. That's his choice. But really, I read him far more as an anti-foundationalist with an agenda. But maybe I'm wrong. Okay, having said that, the most important thing that has to be addressed, and that is the paradigm shift. And my question to Hitch, having heard the pitch by Hitch, I would say, where have you been for the last 18 years? If there's no God, could you please explain to me the collapse of the local reality and the underlying extreme confirmation through events, world events of the last 18 years, which signal a paradigm shift. And that paradigm shift is from the modern era to the postmodern era, and from man's exile to redemption. And if there's no God, maybe I did it, maybe you did it, but what explains it? But that said, I find this to be a very extraordinarily absurd dialogue, that there's no evidence or proof of God. If the collapse of the local reality isn't evidence and proof of God, my goodness, I'm at a complete loss as to what is. I would add that there is, in your tradition, your mother was Jewish, there's 6 million people living in this country that haven't caught up with the reality of your thesis. But that said, the God hypothesis seems to be of no consequence. Having said that, the paradigm shift that takes us forward in the ascent of man, I would characterize it very much in the geocentric, the heliocentric Maxwellian model of electromagnetism to the Einsteinian model of relativity, or the classical mechanics to quantum mechanics. It's a paradigm shift of that order of magnitude. I'm the author of the New Economic Paradigm, and that's a paradigm shift, but it's not of the same order of magnitude. It merely takes the world from division of labor to the integration of labor. And the second paradigm shift I'm also the author of, which is the cognitive behavioral science first principle, which takes us from the old model of man's exile and of the pre-modern and modern era in giving to receive, I give, I get, to the postmodern redemptive paradigm, which is receiving to give. But far more importantly, the major paradigm shift that follows after the collapse of the local realities, the East-West convergence model, which is Humanomics in general, and the two paradigms I've just named in particular. It is critical that that this articulation be brought forth and the ascent of man naturally follow from it. But this hasn't happened yet. And it hasn't happened because there are a lot of buffoons running around writing books and pretending and professing to be great geniuses, and they're talking about words, and they have no capacity to discuss the ideas that are shaping man and mankind's future. And I'm referring specifically to Humanomics in general and its two paradigms, particularly its central organizing principle, which is receiving to give, and the New Economic Paradigm, the integration of labor in particular. Now, the latter happens to be of critical, essential importance to the U.S. economy right now, which is in very dire straits, and it's going to get worse. Specifically because it solves the problem of, it really solves four fundamental problems: jobs creation, retrofitting, retraining, reeducating the entire workforce, making America the most competitive economy for the century ahead, and lastly, and most interestingly, it solves the planetary crisis of climate change. Why or how? Simply by its development and implementation as world-class global technological infrastructure will transform fundamentally the pattern of 24/7, 365, moving hundreds of millions of people vehicularly to jobs, work, training, consumption, etc., 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 unnecessarily. With the new model and its development, implementation, and acculturation, these statistics can be halved over a decade, which will dramatically reduce by over 50% the greenhouse gas effect, which all global climatologists agree is the primary culprit of the climate change problem. So we have a win-win situation. We have a new economic paradigm when constructed with a $5 trillion investment will create tens of millions of sustainable domestic content jobs, but it will also solve the climate problem. It'll eliminate the national debt. It can be amortized over 20 years. 60% of the investment, supply side investment, will come from the G9. It's a win-win situation. It'll eliminate the national debt, eliminate the Social Security deficit, trade deficit. It'll triple the value of the dollar. So, come on, guys. What are we wasting time talking in debating societies about words when the principal task here is to discuss the ideas that are fundamental, shaping the future of man and mankind, and particularly solving the most major, most fundamental macro problems of the U.S. economy in particular, and the G9 and all the world's economies in particular. Anyway, I thank you for listening. I'm Yehoshua Yaakov. I live in Jerusalem. I'm a didactic scientist, and Hitchens' challenge is not quite as challenging as he thinks it is. Having said that, I wish him good luck, and I bless you, Joe and Hitch and all, and Kabel B'Shvilatet. That's Hebrew. In English, receiving to give. And thank you for listening. I'm Yehoshua Yaakov.